guys, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm here today with Josh Green, who is graciously giving us his very early morning hours. I think you said it just turned 6:22 there because he's
Indeed.
calling in from Okinawa. So thank you, Josh. And you guys, you'll have to indulge us a little bit if the sound is not exactly perfect. It's because he's calling from a great distance. Josh is married to an active duty sailor, and I was really we were talking and it was really cool because our paths have crossed several times. We have a lot in common, but that's for later. Let's go ahead and introduce everybody to you first, Josh. Could you just share your military spouse professional journey with everyone?
Sure. It it started when I met my wife and or my now wife, and I knew that she was going to be going overseas after we had dated, and we knew that we were going to be likely spending the rest of our lives together.
Oh.
So I had been planning to go to grad school, but later, but knowing that she was going to be going overseas and that we didn't want to live apart as much as possible, I accelerated my entrance into grad school. And when I graduated, we got married. And like many spouses, we first got legally married so that I could get to where she was, which was Yokosuka, Japan at the time. And I chose to work for a couple of startups that I had been introduced to in grad school because it offered me the greatest flexibility from working from Japan. And this was now 10 years ago. And it got me used to waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning and starting to make phone calls to the US, gradually going from the East Coast to the West Coast. And it's also in Yokosuka where I began getting involved with different military spouse groups and getting involved as a volunteer. And when I knew that we were going from Japan to Northern Virginia, I asked my old boss from the organization that I worked with as a graduate student in Nevada to connect me to the organization's counterpart in Virginia. And that led to me getting hired at George Mason University and the Virginia Small Business Development Center. And was very fortunate at the time to get connected to a Navy veteran who was just beginning to start a program to help early stage tech startups. So that was the end of 2017, and I thought that was going to be an introduction to learning more about different tech startups that were in the area and start working for a tech startup. But the program grew so quickly, and it was so fun building the program. We had our own little startup that I ended up staying. And at the beginning of 2020, after about 2 years of working, I was, as a military spouse, I was underemployed. I was working part-time, and despite having a lot of fun doing it, I was at the legal limit of part-time. So it was just under, I think, 35 hours a week. So almost full-time. But I didn't see a future. So I was starting to look at other opportunities, and I had joined the Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Fellowship and began that internship that led into the beginning of COVID. And so at the same time I was doing that, my boss at the SBDC had let me know that he was leaving to go from George Mason University to George Washington University. And I ended up becoming the acting director of the program. And because of hiring freezes all over, including at the university, I had that job for 6 months. And I had shepherded it from being what we were doing, which was partially in person, partially virtually, to entirely virtual, and made some other programmatic changes that the program grew significantly while I was the acting director. And then once they started the hiring process, I thankfully had enough time where I put myself in the position where somebody on a hiring committee would have to say, do we think this other person can do as well as Josh has already proven that he's capable of? So I became the permanent director, and I was grateful for that because I was then in a job that was requisite with my skills and experience. And because of COVID and everything being virtual, I was able to take that with me when we moved overseas.
Oh, good.
And we were 6 hours ahead, so I did have to make sure that I was trying to have a little bit of balance of not working for 12 hours a day every day. But was, again, grateful for being able to take advantage of that. And also, in that same time, kind of right as COVID had started, in addition to, I went to grad school for my MBA, and I had also started around the same time of the Hiring Our Heroes program, leveraging the Syracuse University IVMF program, and started working towards getting my PMP, my project management professional certification, which I got a little bit before we moved outside of Northern Virginia. So I was able to leverage a lot of resources. Some of them didn't work out because of timing, like Hiring Our Heroes, but some of them were incredibly beneficial, and really appreciate that those resources are available. We moved from overseas to Great Lakes, Naval Station Great Lakes, and thankfully was able to keep my job, which I had for the 2 years that we lived in Chicago area. And then we found out that we're moving here to Okinawa, and I knew that I didn't want to work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I learned my lesson when we were in Europe that it's a struggle, and this would have been even more. So I let my boss know that I was going to be departing, and I had talked to and told my old boss, who had moved to George Washington, and he let me know that he's had a long-term relationship with the International Graduate University here in Okinawa, the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, and connected me with them. And it just so happened that they were starting up a program very similar to the program that my old boss and I had created. So I pitched them this idea that was a fair bit different than the direction that they were thinking of going. And they liked it, and I got here on like the 25th of August of last year, something like that. And a few days later, I was on campus starting to work for them. It's a part-time gig, which is perfect for what I'm looking for right now. So it was very fortunate timing, and I've really enjoyed being able to do that program for the last year. It started with one program, and then as others in the institution have seen what I've been able to do to assist, I've added 2 more programs that I work with students and faculty and staff. So it's been a very rewarding journey. I know I'm not necessarily part of the majority that the timing has worked out so well, but I've worked very hard on putting myself in a position throughout my career to talk to as many people as I can, get mentors, find people who can help support me, and thankfully that has paid off, and it's paid off, at the right time when I've needed it. So there's very fortunate to have had that work out, and so I'm excited to see wherever we end up going next, what that will hold. But I've had a very rewarding professional journey while also being a military spouse.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about what it means to be a mentor at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. Like what is your day like?
Sure. So I run the 2 main programs that I run is a mixture of facilitating educational content and discussion about the technology commercialization process.
Mhm.
And then it's also adding in one-on-one mentoring with the individual teams. So understanding what their goals are, what they're looking to achieve, what their technology is, what the field is, and then making sure that they have the tools to go out and figure out who is their customer, what is that customer looking for, how's that customer doing or solving their issue now, and then ultimately how can the team that I'm working with impact that and learn from going out and understanding the market better before they look to enter it. So it's a lot of preparing for facilitated sessions, delivering educational content, and then lots of meetings. Like next Tuesday, I will be on campus to get an update from all of the teams in one program and then give them feedback and meet with them one-on-one to be able to give them some very specific advice and support on their individual ventures.
No, I love that. And I was listening as you were talking about the work that you did with Bob, right, at SBDC. I love him. He actually came and spoke at one of our earlier summits, as a matter of fact, and talked
Oh,
about
awesome.
resources available to local community. And that was awesome because, I mean, I think that as somebody who took his place and you have developed it as a mentor, I think the natural next question for you is, can you talk to us about the importance of plugging into local resources? I mean, tell us about the importance of plugging into programs for military spouse entrepreneurs, but also maybe at the local level, non-military affiliated programs. Like, why should spouses go out and look for an SBDC or a
Yeah.
George Mason? Like how, and then how do they go about finding them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially related to entrepreneurship, it's vitally important for spouses to get as much help as possible. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot
Right.
of risk built into being an entrepreneur. So, understanding what it involves and hearing from professionals to me is really important. There are lots of resources out there. Not all of them are super visible. And I always say, it's important for spouse entrepreneurs to be aware of people with good intentions. There are a lot of military spouses out there that uh, share their experiences, but they're not necessarily in a position to share it at a professional level of providing mentorship, which can lead people who may not know that there are other more experienced people out there that they can get connected to at no cost, that they may be getting advice that isn't relevant to them or could actually lead them down a path that is not going to lead to success. So there's the first place I always recommend people go is going online. If people are looking to start a small business or get involved in business, starting with the Small Business Administration's website, they have a lot of really good content about the beginnings of starting a business, what it entails, what people should know. And then every state and territory in the U.S. Has a Small Business Development Center, which is funded in part by the SBA. And they've been around for almost 50 years, and the sole purpose is to help small businesses by providing free one-on-one advising to make sure that they have the understanding and can get help building a solid foundation. So even if somebody's overseas like myself in a foreign country, it's just a matter of reaching out to either their hometown and finding an SBDC in that area or whatever their home of record is. I've never run into an SBDC that won't support somebody who at least has that connection.
Yeah, no, I love
And
that.
oh yeah, so
Just going back to something you said
yeah,
earlier about like, you know, I think there are a lot of people out there who want to give advice, but they may not be, it might not be a relevant or right advice. And I mean, the vision I had in my mind was like there's some conversations that are meant for after 6 o'clock at the bar, where you're just like, lamenting, or venting. And there's some conversations you have during the workday when you're talking to like an official resource, like a lawyer or an accountant or something like that.
yeah,
Like it's important. I like you're saying it's important for people to understand the difference between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Qualified individuals is really helpful, and the so going to an SBDC to get that one advice is really helpful, and then it's also important to also find the military specific resources that are out there. There are a number of national organizations that have professionals that could provide some advice and support. And then there are a lot of resources that are out there. So looking online, finding what those are that are relevant to that specific person and their interest is important. And then it's also making sure that they find somebody who is experienced, who they can talk to about resources that they're finding and looking to use, specifically related to funding. So there are a lot of predatory opportunities where the military community gets taken advantage of on a regular basis. And so when people see things that seem too good to be true, they often are. So finding somebody who can help them review that information and understand, yes, this is a legitimate organization and it does have very good terms versus, this is something that may sound like good terms, but in the long run, it is not going to be great. So definitely making sure that people find that advisor support, and then to their specific location, looking on different online forums and trying to find other people having asked questions that they'll likely already had answered that they can reference. So they're not having to ask all those questions over again is a great place to understand locally. The judge advocate on the base, wherever a spouse is stationed, is a great resource because they, in theory, should know what the local requirements are. And I run in personally to a situation where that wasn't the case, and misinformation was being given out, which wasn't helpful. But for the most part, they're a great resource to know what's going on and what the process is if you need to get approved on that local base, which is a big one. And I think that most people know what Military One Source is. They have a great place to start with understanding just baseline information to point people in the right direction. So a lot of things that go into it, but finding that organization, and my recommendation is the SBDC, but finding somebody that is a trusted advisor that can help them navigate through that process.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when it comes to the trusted advisor, you talked in when you sent in your interview, but also like in this conversation about the role that mentors have played in your life. And Bob ended up being a mentor, but also a sponsor, right?
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
he sponsored you for your next position. So, I mean, I end up asking this question of a lot of people because military spouses, the one question we get the most is, I don't even know where to go about finding sponsors and mentors.
Yeah.
You're so glib and you just say, go find a sponsor, go find a mentor. And they're like, it's not that easy. So how do they get started?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And this is a topic that I talk to young professionals a lot through my volunteering outside of military spouse related volunteering. So you got to put yourself out there. So going to networking events, and whether it's in a personal or a professional capacity, when you're talking to people, tell them about what your goals are, what you're looking for, the different things that you'd like to do, because inevitably somebody is going to say, oh, that's interesting. I know this person. I can connect you with them, and they might be able to, whatever that thing may be. So putting yourself out there and having a very clear and concise description that you can, or your elevator pitch of not what you can do like you're trying to get hired, but what you're looking for. And people will inevitably try to help you. I think especially within the military spouse community and when you're at networking events or
Yeah.
professional events. So having that ability to share and then get connected to people, which you need to vet and make sure who they are and what advice they're giving, and is it good advice. But the more that you do that, the more people are going to find people who could potentially become mentors or sponsors.
It's so funny that you're saying that because that was my husband's exact experience when he transitioned, when he retired. And like in the military, you don't go to networking events to find a job. So he was not in the practice of doing that. And so he went to an Arlington County networking event, and it was just with Tara Palacios. And she was having an event, and literally, it was just a bunch of people in a room, and they went around. And I think if you haven't done this before, it's hard to imagine, but it's not touchy feely or squishy. You're literally going around, and each person is talking about why they're there, what they have. And after Kevin was done doing his spiel, one of the other guys was like, I have a friend who's looking for your exact skill set. I'd love to connect you guys. And that's the person who ended up hiring him, even though he was going through, like interview process with like the big defense contractors. That was the person that ended up hiring him. And I think it's hilarious that the one thing they had in common was they had both gone to the Air Force Academy. And so the guy who was helping my husband, I mean, he knew enough to trust that we went to the same school. I know your value systems, your value system. I know that you're an Air Force retiree veteran. And so like I trust enough to recommend you to my friend because, I know enough about you, and I thought that was really cool. I'm like, it's not supposed to be that easy. But
Yeah,
sometimes it is that easy.
yeah, that's what happens. And when you talk to people about yourself and what you're looking for, you end up finding connections, and people build that trust,
Yeah.
which I think is really important. And that's what's worked for me. Um, and there's also programs that are out there that are really beneficial. I got a mentor through American Corporate Partnership, and or excuse me, American Corporate Partners,
Yep.
and uh, it was an awesome opportunity. I got connected to somebody who was in a related field that I was interested in, and we spent a year talking, and him providing guidance, accountability, connections, and it was really helpful. I think that the I mentioned Hiring Our Heroes, the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, was another opportunity where I met a lot of people in the field I was interested in getting into. That some of those people I'm still connected to. I had a call with one of them yesterday, actually, and it's important to just find whatever you're interested in. If you're not finding those people who you feel would be good mentors through kind of just natural going to events and meeting people, taking that up a notch and either going to industry specific conferences or events where you're going to likely find more people that are related to what you're interested in, or starting to look online. Who is writing articles? Who is attending events and speaking at events? Those people are usually easier to find. And then reaching out to them on LinkedIn, if they're looking and they're responding to you, letting them know that you're interested in talking for 20 minutes to learn about their experience, and then hearing about what you're looking to do and if they have any advice. People like being told that they are an expert and you would like help from them. And if they know it's only intended to be a 20-minute call, a lot of people will make that time. And I've seen it happen a lot. And it's a good way to meet a lot of people. You might find people who are not a good fit, and you might find people that are a really good fit. So it's about putting yourself out there, and then not only doing that, but keeping the relationship going. So keeping those people updated and letting them know about your successes, your issues that they might be able to help with. And then when you're looking for things, if you've kept that relationship alive, being able to hear from them and see if they have advice and support or connections that you might be able to leverage. And Bob is a perfect example for me, where the connection we had was that I'm a military spouse, he's a military veteran, and we developed not only a great friendship, but he has been an amazing mentor for the past decade of my life, and was a sponsor as well, related to the position that I'm in now. So it's something that those don't come about just because. You have to put yourself out there, you have to develop it, and you have to be deliberate with what you're trying to do.
And you
To
have to
find.
perform. Like
Yeah,
Bob would not have invested that time in you if you weren't a performer, if you were not
yeah,
doing a good job.
absolutely.
So it's one
Yeah.
of those, you have to put your money where your mouth is. It's not you just asking for things. It's you showing you can invest in me because I'm worthy of it and I will not let you down.
Yeah, absolutely. That couldn't agree with that more.
And I also think that sometimes people forget that they have natural networks. Like they have, like, I think they forget like the older generation of retirees in their lives who have had full careers and probably have people that they mentored who are still in those careers. And
Yeah.
they're a great network. And also like university alumni networks, I think you gave them a lot of money. Like
Yeah.
make them earn it. Like go back and check those networks. No, I love it. I also love that you get it. You volunteered in addition to working. You mentioned that when you guys were at Yokosuka, that's when you started volunteering. So I think some people have a hard time imagining what kind of tangible impact volunteering can have on their career trajectory. And do you have any examples about how volunteering actually helped you?
So I think from a career impact standpoint, because when I was thinking about this, my first thought was like, well, no, like my volunteering is outside of my professional activity. It's what I'm trying to do to give back. But the more I thought about it, there are some, I think, real tangible elements where uh, the people that I volunteered with, especially when I was in Northern Virginia and I was starting a new job, I went to a large number of events. I got involved with a number of different organizations, and that grew my network. And one of the people actually who I met at a career fair when I first got to Northern Virginia ended up being somebody who was a veteran who knew Bob. They worked together on some programming, and so I I had met her, I had met Bob, and then through knowing that I knew both of them, it was easier for me to get involved with some of the programming that she had put on, and it comes out where the more you volunteer, the more people you're going to meet, and people who see you in a very unique capacity where uh, you aren't you aren't performing necessarily a job that you're getting paid for. So if people see you in a capacity where the understanding from the beginning is that you are not getting paid, they get to see a side of you that to me at least is a very pure part of who that person is, and you get to see them in a way that it is unique. So be it, I work at a here there's a very large thrift shop network of military spouses that get involved in various levels of leadership. They have an amazing team that are running like island wide programming, and they have to do a lot, which is similar to a lot of other board of advisors and directors. And then they're doing work that is supervisory. So there's a lot of parallels to the workforce, and so people seeing those individuals do that work and how well, hopefully, that they're doing, can translate directly into especially places, Oconus, where it's like, oh, I'm looking for somebody. I need to find somebody local. I've already seen that you can deliver. That's a warm connection to try to find a paid role. So there's a number of different ways that it can impact, but to me, it's mainly about building that network and then showcasing your skills, and that also means that when you volunteer, volunteer to do what you're passionate about. But if there's a way to volunteer to do something similar to your career field, it can showcase to that same group of people that you can deliver, and then it also gives you experience that you can put on a resume, because it doesn't matter if it's paid work or not. Putting it on your resume to showcase not only what you did, how long you did it, and the impact that you had, can all have a real impact on what that volunteer time can do for your career.
No, I love it. And I love that you're here. And because you're here and you're our first male military spouse that we are highlighting, of course, I'm going to ask you, like, because we were chatting ahead of time and you were sharing a lot of data points about male military spouses. And I'm not sure that everybody here knows about that. So I wonder if you could touch on that a little bit and kind of enlighten us about like what the difference is for male military spouses who are professionals, and if they have any extra challenges or like what we should all be aware of if we're looking to support them, get to know them, network with them, um, whatever you think.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, we're a small but mighty contingent of the military spouse community. Uh, Roughly, there's about 10% military spouses. Half of those are civilians, meaning they are not active duty or prior service. And I think that there has been a lot of progress made in terms of making military spouse organizations and opportunities open to everybody. I think that, when I became a military spouse for the first time, I ran into, and occasionally still do, run into, it's not a spouse group, it's a wives group. And I think that immediately is a barrier to entry where a lot of people don't feel comfortable saying like, okay, well, this obviously isn't for me. I think that there's the openness, but I'll share a quick story of I went to a MilSpouse Fest event in Northern Virginia when I first moved there, and I up in a suit, and everybody that saw me thought I was a vendor and was telling me like where vendors go to get prepared. I was like, no, I'm a military spouse. I need to check in, and uh, I was at the event. There were about 400 spouses. There were two males. It just so happened we were on opposite ends of the event, so I never got to meet the other guy. But I was fortunate enough to have a winning ticket for some of the prizes that were given out. And the prize that I was given
Oh
was a
no.
breast pump,
Oh,
and
great.
it was something that thankfully there was another spouse right literally at the table next to me in front of me who when I won it and I raised my hand, she turned around. I could see that she was pregnant, so I gave it to her. And at about 10 minutes later, some of the organizers came up and gave me a gift bag of stuff that they were like, oh, sorry about that. Thank you for being so gracious. Here's some stuff for you. And when I looked at it, the two things that I remember, it had a red, big metal Starbucks cup, which not necessarily female focused, but was a little bit more towards the female paraphernalia side. And then it also had a bath bomb and a couple other very female centric items. And so I was very appreciative of that. I gave all of it to my wife. There was nothing negative at all about my experience. They were all very kind. But what it highlights is that I've heard a lot of organizations say, like, oh, what do we do to get more male spouses out? And so being prepared for me is one of them. So, like, if you have a couple of bags that are stuff that if nobody takes, you just take it to the next event, but is a more male spouse focused bag so that you're at least ready for it. I think when it comes to professional military spouse events, I think gender is fairly neutral in terms of the advertising and promotion, but it's tougher to get male spouses out because they don't necessarily they're not as proactive across the board. So what I found is the people in organizations have to be more proactive. So if it's a volunteer group for a unit, it's talking to unit leadership, who are the females who are in the organization who have husbands, or if there are any male service members who have husbands, that they are provided information about, hey, we would like you to come out, something that is low barrier to entry, like coffee or lunch or an evening get together, depending on the location and what comes up. That just having that proactive nature of trying to find those people, understand what they're looking for, but also being okay with that's a group of people who may not be interested in coming out. There's a lot of data that shows that male spouses are less likely to find connection through the military spouse community. That doesn't mean that on on the whole that we're not. I'm very engaged. I live in a neighborhood where I have a male spouse neighbor who is also very active as a spouse with other spouses. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out in your area what are people looking for, and trying to be as proactive as opposed to passive and think that they're going to come out to you.
I think you bring up a good point. I mean, I think it is a little bit easier for us in terms of, because we have our networking events and our events, but I think our events are a little bit easier because it's gender neutral. Like we just hope, like you'll come, and also we hope that the service members will come. So
Yeah.
we tend to create events for males and females because we're hoping that, you do service together. You would think that you're networking together. So we're trying to attract both males and females. And so it's not as difficult as it sounds because it's just, there's really no reason, I don't think, for a professional networking event to bring gender into it. It's
Mhm.
just, you're just professional networking. So that's a really great point. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for being the first. Very exciting, and for sharing your insights, and especially for waking up early. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us, and to our friends at USA for making these conversations possible. And I hope you will come back next week and come and meet another fabulous military spouse. Thanks, guys.